Towards the end of 2023, I wandered into my local charity shop, which, for those outside of the UK unfamiliar with the terminology, is simply a second-hand shop, where people donate unwanted items, clothes, bric-a-brac and so on, and then the shop sells them on with the money going to charity. Usually it's stuff from house clearances, or when loved ones pass away and families sort out a life's collection of, well, stuff. And even though you often find only junk, I do love to browse the random nature of the trinkets on sale, hoping that somebody's trash becomes my treasure. But if something particularly good is donated to the shop, like antique pottery, a gold ring, a fine glass vase or a large set of Lego, well, they're often priced up accordingly. But one day in a visit to a shop in November 2023, something caught my eye. A dull metal pendant or medal with some very weird markings etched upon it. The writing on it was not in English, and this was on the reverse, a 4x4 square with Hebrew characters. My general knowledge of history is pretty good, but back in November 2023, I'd never seen anything quite like this before. I asked the shop assistant what it was, but they had no idea. They didn't know who donated it or where it came from, only that it was very old. I asked if it was silver, but they told me there were no hallmarks. She said she thought it was made of tin, and that's because it's so thin. She also told me it gave her the creeps. I asked for a price, and she said I could take it for £1. And being someone who loves the weird and the wonderful, well, of course I bought it. But what is it? Is it something old or something new? Is it a religious or ritual object, or is it maybe masonic or something related to the occult? Well, it led me on a journey of discovery, and in this video, I'll be able to tell you exactly what the item is, what it's made from, its importance and also a rough age. So, here goes. Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Please subscribe to the channel for regular content on ancient architecture, as well as all of the latest news from the world of archaeology. I'm currently working on a fantastic new video on a little known pyramid of Egypt, but I've taken a break from that research to present this. And no, it's not my usual sort of content, but I thought I'd take you on this small journey of discovery. Because it is weird and wonderful. And although it's not ancient history, it's history nonetheless. So, for £1 I bought this small grey dull pendant, and it's so thin I was worried it would cut me if mishandled. My first job was to find out what it was made from, and luckily I do have a friend that makes jewellery. She was able to confirm that it was indeed solid silver, and that it could be cleaned up easily to shine once again. And she was right. It shined up really nice, and the black markings really stood out. I could finally make out the writing, Confirmo Deus Potentissimus, which I found out was Latin for Strength me, O God most powerful. This is apparently some kind of prayer that expresses a request for God's strength and guidance. Okay, so what I have must be a religious object. But is it Jewish, Christian, or something else? Maybe something Kabbalistic. I didn't know. But the internet is truly a wonderful thing, and searching the Latin words on the object brought up some very specific search results. And I wasn't the first person to research such an object. The top result was from the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine, and it read, An Occult or Mormon Talisman by Ant Doyle. Naturally, I clicked the link, and there was a picture of the object I'd found in the charity shop. Well, in fact, it wasn't mine, but it was very similar. And to note, it appears the article has been updated just a few months ago as well. So, around 10 years ago, and Doyle was out on a dig next to a 17th century farmhouse near Bury in Lancashire in England, and he found this metal disc, and it looks to be the exact same size as mine. It's like the same hand had made both. He researched the object, research that has made my job a hell of a lot easier, and he says it's potentially a 16th century silver Jupiter talisman. He discovered that the symbols related to the planet Jupiter and the Hebrew characters in the 4x4 table are in fact numbers, and they add up to 136. And this does make sense, because 136 is written at the bottom. Doyle's object also had the same Latin inscription I've just mentioned, as well as a small hole that was punched in the top, indicating it was likely a pendant. Mine, of course, still has the loop. He then found out the symbols it displays were first depicted in 1533, in a book titled De Occulta Philosophia by Agrippa von Nettesheim, which I probably pronounced all wrong. The way the symbols are laid out on the talismans owned by myself and Doyle are found in the 1801 book The Magus, written by English occultist Francis Barrett. In the book he says the following, quote, "It consists of a square drawn into itself. It contains 16 particular numbers, and in every line and diameter 4, making 34. The sum of all is 136. There are over it divine names, and an intelligence to that which is good, and a spirit to bad, and out of it is drawn the character of Jupiter and the spirits thereof. If this is engraven on a plate of silver, with Jupiter being powerful and ruling in the heavens, it conduces to gain riches and favour, love, peace and concord, and to appease enemies and to confirm honours, dignities and counsels." End quote. So after reading that, I thought, not bad for £1 from a charity shop. And what's most interesting is the object's link to Mormonism. The Mormon prophet Joseph Smith had a strong interest in Gnosticism, the Jewish Kabbalah and the occult, and he would have been familiar with the work of Francis Barrett. Smith is said to have owned a so-called Jupiter talisman, and apparently it was one of his most important and intimate possessions, and it was even found on his person at his time of death. I should add that even though there is evidence for Smith having a Jupiter talisman, it isn't conclusive, and because the sources are often third-hand accounts, not everybody agrees. If it was confirmed that Smith did wear a Jupiter talisman, well, it would likely be quite damaging for the Mormon Church. I don't know. According to Doyle, there is one surviving photograph of the specific Joseph Smith talisman, and here it is. All the markings are exactly the same as the one I had bought. Although mine is now beautifully polished, it's hard to tell which is which, almost as if they've been created by the same hand, as well as the one that was found by Doyle. It's like they all came from the same workshop. Doyle eventually reached a dead end in his research and concluded that his object was either a 16th century occult talisman, native to and crafted in the local area it was found in, or that it was somehow related to early Mormonism in the UK. The first Mormon missionaries came to England in the early 1800s, apparently landing in Liverpool by boat. From Liverpool, apparently they went through Lancashire to their final destination in Preston. So, for Doyle's talisman, found on a Lancashire farm, maybe it was brought across the ocean with one of the first missionaries and was dropped during his travels. But mine? Well, there's no history related to mine, other than the fact it was found in a Leicestershire charity shop in the East Midlands in the 21st century. Here we can see a comparison between mine and the one worn by Joseph Smith. They're very similar indeed. On the internet there's many modern replicas for sale, on both eBay and Etsy, but mine is certainly old. But just how old is it? I next found one in the archive of the British Museum, and it was almost identical to mine. They describe it as being made from silver, and they believe it to be 16th to 18th century in origin, although the two question marks show they don't know for sure. Continuing my research, and I landed on a website called galata.co.uk, where I found another example, and it's an even closer match to mine. The website says it's 19th century, and it's on sale for £200. I kept digging and found another on the Portable Antiquities Scheme website, and this was made from copper alloy, and they said it's either 16th to 18th century, or if a modern copy, 19th to early 20th century. I then saw one on the Science Museum website, and this one does look different to mine, in that the inner circles are smaller. Of course, it's still very similar, but side by side there are clear differences. They list it as dating to between 1850 and 1920, saying the inscriptions and signs are Kabbalistic in origin, symbols and sigils believed to convey magical powers. But was there a way to really find out the age? Well, apparently the artwork in Barrett's book is the source image for all of these silver talismans, meaning that the one I own, as well as Joseph Smith's and all the others I found, must be post 1801 in origin, the date when the Magus was published. This is basically the occultist Barrett's own design. Smith died in 1844, and he apparently had his talisman on him at his time of death. There is no way to know for sure, but looking at Smith's, and it does look like the same hand made the one that I have, meaning it's a fair assumption that both date back to between 1801 and 1844. I can't really narrow it down any more than that. After looking at all the examples I can find, I think mine is most similar to the one housed in the British Museum, and this one was donated to the museum in 1885, meaning an early 19th century date for both items does seem to be likely, both designed from the diagram in Barrett's book. Maybe they were mass produced in the early 1800s, or maybe my one is a later replica. It's really impossible to know. But what do the symbols actually mean? The talisman of Joseph Smith was described in full in 1974 by Dr. Reed Durham, who was director of the Latter-day Saints Institute of Religion at the University of Utah and president of the Mormon History Association. He was the first to identify Joseph Smith's magic medallion as a Jupiter talisman. Durham announced what he had found out in front of the Mormon History Association on April 20th, 1974. It's from this where we learn the meaning of the symbols. This symbol, which looks like a number 4, is a symbol for Jupiter. Here on the right is the Hebrew word Abba, meaning father, and the one at the top means Elob, or God the Father, or Father is God. On the left is the Hebrew word Josephiel, which apparently means Jehovah is spokesman for God, or Jehovah is the mouth. Now, of course, I'm way out of my comfort zone, so I don't know how true this all is. But one website regarding this talisman says the name on the right is a divine name for Jupiter, and the one at the top is another, and the one on the left means the intelligence of Jupiter, whose number is 136. But anyway, the grid on the back is certainly known as the Table of Jupiter, a magic square where the numbers in the columns, rows and diagonals always add up to 34. The 4 numbers in each corner also add up to 34, and apparently there are even more combinations. Magic squares appeared in European literature in the 11th century, and they were known as planetary squares. Different magic squares were assigned to different planets, and from the 12th century and beyond, they would start to appear in mystic religious writings. The Jupiter square, the one on the talisman, was immortalised on this famous 1514 engraving by a German Renaissance artist Albrecht Dürer. I could write a whole video on this one picture alone, so for now I'll go back to the talisman. On the other side we have the Latin phrase meaning "Strength me, O God most powerful," but apparently this is not good Latin, being grammatically incorrect, and some say it's meant to mean "Confirm, O God, who is all-powerful," or "Almighty God, confirm me," or "Uphold me or support me." The circle and cross means the spirit of Jupiter, and the broken line is the path of Jupiter in the orbit of the heavens. The line should not be broken, as Francis Barrett copied it down incorrectly in his book. The Magus is a book of magic seals, published first in the UK in 1801 and then in America in 1804. Its publication played an important role in the English, American and European revival of magic with the CK. On the back of this, a number of talismans were made in the 19th century, but most now are lost to history, and they were created directly from the pictures in this book. So what I have is a piece of history, a mystical magic object, an amulet to bring good fortune to the one that owns it. It's clearly handmade, and from the light scratches all over it, it's clearly been worn. But it's also been well looked after, clearly loved and cared for. So now I have it, but do I really want to keep it? Well, I don't really have a great affinity to the object. It is nice to look at, and I do like the history and the meaning attached to it, but maybe one day I'll end up selling it. Or maybe I should wear it and see what luck comes my way. But don't worry, I don't think I'll be starting a new religion anytime soon. I'd just like to ask at the end of this video if you also own a magic talisman, one that looks similar to this, then please do get in touch. It would be great to see more pictures to know more and also make a follow-up video. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.